You read that right, some places in America still come with more challenges for Black residents than you'd expect. We're not just talking about the occasional awkward glance at the grocery store, we mean serious issues like racial profiling, systemic barriers, and laws that unintentionally or intentionally keep Black communities on the margins. Despite the national progress many love to highlight, the reality for many Black Americans is still shadowed by inequality, underinvestment, and social exclusion. Diversity might be celebrated, but true equity often seems elusive, buried beneath policies and attitudes that don't quite match the welcoming image painted on state signs. This video explores the top 10 states where Black individuals face the greatest risks, not just physically, but emotionally, economically, and socially, from biased law enforcement to environments that mask hostility behind friendly facades. If you're considering relocating or just want to understand where safety and community truly matter, stick around. Hit that like button, subscribe to Virtual Travel, and let's unpack the realities behind those shiny, welcome signs. Number 10, Utah. Utah boasts breathtaking mountain vistas, world-class ski resorts, and a reputation for clean living, yet, for many Black residents, those mountain views hide some harsh truths. Utah's Black population is less than 2%, making it one of the least diverse states. That means when you're one of the few, you're hypervisible, every glance feels like an inspection, and feeling like an outsider becomes exhausting. Black families in Utah often report feeling unseen or marginalized in schools and workplaces. When your child is the only Black student, or your presence is tokenized in meetings, it's hard to feel truly included. The state's policies tend to overlook racial disparities, from employment discrimination to uneven educational opportunities. Utah's response to racial bias complaints is often sluggish, and data shows Black students are suspended at rates 5 times higher than their white peers, simply for existing. Would you feel comfortable raising a family where your children are judged before they even speak? Utah has natural beauty, but if inclusion is optional, is it really a home for everyone? Number 9, Wyoming. Wyoming is often called the equality state, but for Black residents, that title can feel like a cruel joke. With less than 1% Black population, the state's Black community is almost invisible. While some might think fewer people mean less racism, the truth is that isolation makes belonging even harder. There are very few Black cultural centers or advocacy groups, and incidents of racial bias in schools or workplaces tend to go unaddressed. The few Black residents report feeling like they're living in a place where they're only seen as a passing face, if they're seen at all. The lack of community support and the absence of visible Black leadership make it difficult for Black families to feel secure or connected. Would you want your children to grow up in a space where they rarely see role models who look like them? Wyoming's stunning landscapes come at a cost. Cultural connection and community might be missing. Number 8, Idaho. Here's a startling fact. Idaho has one of the highest per capita populations of white nationalist groups in the U.S. With less than 1% Black residents, the presence of hate groups and racial tension can feel like a threat rather than a welcome. Race-based hate crimes in Idaho are higher than the national average, and long-standing histories of white supremacist activity persist in parts of the state. For Black newcomers, walking into a community where hostility might be lurking just beneath the surface can be intimidating. There's little infrastructure to support Black residents, no cultural centers, advocacy groups, or community programs. Would you be comfortable raising children in a state where the threat of bias or violence is a real concern? Idaho's natural beauty is undeniable, but safety and acceptance are critical factors to consider. Number 7, West Virginia. West Virginia's scenic mountains and friendly small towns hide a less welcoming reality for many Black residents. With a Black population around 3%, racial disparities are often overlooked in favor of the state's rustic charm. In many small towns, feeling like an outsider is the norm, glances filled with suspicion or indifference are common. Black residents report limited access to cultural resources, underfunded schools, and a lack of Black-owned businesses. The community's social fabric often feels disconnected from Black history and culture, making it hard to feel truly at home. Would you feel safe raising a family where your cultural identity is rarely acknowledged? West Virginia's beauty might be appealing, but the social landscape can be isolating. Number 6. Indiana. Indiana's history is complex, with roots in the Ku Klux Klan and segregation-era policies that still cast shadows today. Despite progress, the state struggles with racial inclusion. In some cities like Indianapolis, Black residents face persistent disparities in employment, housing, and education. Even today, subtle forms of discrimination, like microaggressions or being overlooked, remain common. Police data shows that Black drivers are pulled over at disproportionately high rates, and representation in leadership roles remains limited. Would you feel comfortable raising your children in a state where racial equity is still a work in progress? Indiana's history shows that change takes time, but for many, the journey isn't quick enough. Number 5. Missouri. Missouri's story is deeply intertwined with the fight for justice. Ferguson in 2014 brought national attention to police brutality and systemic racism. Sadly, many issues persist in the state. Black residents in Missouri face higher rates of police stops, and disparities in housing and education remain significant. The city of St. Louis, with its vibrant culture and history, also bears the weight of racial inequity. Underfunded schools, redlining, and ongoing police tensions create a difficult environment. Would you want your children growing up in a state where justice is still ongoing, and inequality remains a daily challenge? Missouri's rich history is undeniable, but the path to true inclusion is still a work in progress. Number 4. South Carolina. South Carolina's warm climates and southern charm hide a painful past and ongoing struggles with racial justice. The tragic 2015 Charleston church shooting was a stark reminder that hate still exists here. Racial profiling remains a concern. Black drivers are more likely to be stopped or searched, and disparities in education and homeownership are widespread. The legacy of segregation influences policies and community attitudes, often making Black residents feel underrepresented and undervalued. Would you feel confident raising a family in a state where inequality is woven into the fabric of daily life? South Carolina's beauty can be deceiving when the roots of prejudice remain deeply embedded. Number 3. Louisiana. Louisiana is famous for its culture, cuisine, and music, but beneath that vibrant surface lies harsh reality for Black residents. The state has the highest incarceration rate in the nation, with Black people disproportionately impacted, accounting for over 2/3 of the prison population despite being only 1/3 of residents. In New Orleans and beyond, gentrification is pushing out longtime Black communities, replacing soul with luxury developments. Underinvestment in schools, healthcare, and employment opportunities keeps many Black families in a cycle of poverty. Would you want your children to grow up in a place that celebrates culture but neglects the very people who created it? Louisiana's roots run deep, but systemic issues threaten to choke the life out of its Black communities. Number 2. Alabama. Alabama's history with racial injustice is well known, yet it still lingers. Hate crimes, redlining, and segregation-era policies continue to shape the landscape today. The state reports high levels of racially motivated crimes, and Black neighborhoods often face neglect and underfunding. Education disparities are stark, and voting rights remain under threat with restrictive laws. Politicians frequently dismiss efforts for racial justice, making progress feel distant. Would you feel safe raising a family in a place that seems to resist change? Alabama's past and present are intertwined. How do you see a future where your community can truly thrive? Number 1. Mississippi. Mississippi, with nearly 40% Black residents, should be a beacon for progress, yet it remains one of the most economically disadvantaged states. Poverty, health disparities, and lack of investment define much of everyday life for Black communities here. Black schools are often underfunded, and access to quality healthcare is limited. The state's history of segregation and voter suppression still echoes today. Confederate symbols fly openly, and voting laws are restrictive. Would you want your children to grow up in a place where systemic barriers are the norm, despite the rich cultural history? Mississippi's resilience is undeniable, but the systemic issues need urgent change. So, what do you think? Are these states misunderstood, or do they have work to do before they can truly be safe and welcoming? Drop your thoughts below. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for virtual travel, because understanding where not to go is just as important as knowing where to explore. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay informed, and stay true to yourself.